And we're live, and we are live. God bless you all the brothers and sisters who've in Christ that have come out to see us today, both live and in recording. I'm Salvador Cordova, and this is the Evidence and Reasons for the Christian Faith video channel, home of the #1 YouTube creationist, as voted by fellow YouTubers. So I'm privileged to have Patrick Alexander here for the first time. You've seen him in the chat, and I'm really excited. We're going to have a show that will talk about William Lane Craig and his appearance on Peaceful Science, which I call hostile pseudoscience. Sorry about that, Josh, but some of the stuff you've got on your on your organizations, I just think is terrible, and I don't think it's very peaceful, and I think it's a hostile environment, and it's not science, it's pseudoscience, and I'm sorry that you keep advertising the science is garbage. So, you know, the viewers know where I stand about Josh's views now. So we're going to cover that. We'll have a lot of random topics. I really want to thank everyone that came out to some of our really heavy-hitting shows that were technical. We had the 4 PhDs here. It was going to be 5, but Dr. Tan couldn't join us on Wednesday night on the Stairway to Life, and we were doing the debate that never was, but people have said that that was a really great show. I was the dumb kid on the block that night. And we had the 4 PhDs, and there was some serious brain power there, and we were just talking about is DNA evidence of God, and I felt everyone prosecuted the case really well. And then the next
that was
night,
an awesome show.
Thank you. I think that was, of any show that we've had here on this channel, I think that one will stand out in my mind. We were trying to make a statement because we're characterized as being anti-science, and I'm just like, just the fact of what the careers that were represented there. I said, you've had 4 outstanding scientists here, professors in their field, in science, defending the idea that DNA is evidence of God. That was just wonderful. And I really, it's one thing to just have one at a time, but when you have those 4 guys appear, that I wanted to make a statement there. And not to mention, in addition to that, we threw a lot of facts out, and that was great. The next night was just a rebroadcast of James Downard. I'd like to thank everyone that supported me during that debate. That's a pretty hostile crowd there over there at Modern Day Debate, and it was kind of nice to rebroadcast it here. And then, but that was also very technical. That was a very technical show. A lot of molecular biology and organic chemistry. But today, it's Friday night. We're going to just kick around and talk about lighter topics. I have a whole bunch on the docket here. I don't know that we're going to get through it all. So with that, on some of my other variety shows, we talked about GE, which stands for genetic entropy and also General Electric. And I'm just going to talk, just because I promised I'd talk about the General Electric Corporation. I'm going to spend maybe 1.5 minutes on this. And I know it's just silly stuff at this point, but let me show it. This is the wiki entry on General Electric. Because someone asked whether they make aircraft engines, and I said, oh yeah. So General Electric is an American multinational conglomerate incorporated in New York City and headquartered in Boston. As of 2018, the company operates through the following segments: aviation, healthcare, power, renewable energy, digital industry, additive manufacturing, venture capital, and finance. And that's about all I'm going to say about General Electric. Now, sometimes just for fun, I'll say General Electric, and then I'll just throw creationists in, or just some things you wouldn't expect. I found out that there was an engineer named Luther Sunderland who worked for General Electric. he worked on some really cool stuff. And he was a pioneering creationist, and this was at a time there weren't many creationists. And I just want to salute him and honor the work of fellow creationists. In case people didn't know, I'm a young Earth, young cosmos creationist. I believe the Earth is young, and I also believe the universe is young, about 6,000, 6,500 years old. And I was observing that it seems that we have engineers that had believed in evolution and then became creationists. I personally don't know of any evolutionary biologists that ever switched. And I just found that interesting. So I've known chemists that can change their minds and become creationists. I've known engineers, especially engineers, but evolutionary biologists are tough cookies. Maybe there is Richard Sternberg, who kind of came halfway in between, and oh my goodness, in his image is here. So that's about all I have to say about General Electric, okay? Because I promised someone I'd talk about GE, and I wanted to follow through with my promise. We're going to cover William Lane Craig and on Joshua Swamidass's show, but I'm going to cover, let me look at the docket here. I'm just going to cover a little bit about William Mitchell Ramsey, archaeologist. He's a skeptic-turned-believer in the New Testament. Then I'm going to talk about why I will dispute theistic evolutionists, not based on Genesis, but the New Testament. And that's why I'm going to talk about the wedding at Cana. I'll mention, since just as a segue to the discussion about William Lane Craig's appearance on Hostile Pseudoscience, that's Joshua Swamidass's organization, and William Lane Craig's appearance, and then the spat he had with Ken Ham. And also I will say some things about what Joshua Swamidass is doing that I'm not very happy about. So, and then Patrick is going to share some stuff, some of his thoughts and reflections. So I'm actually going to hand a lot of that off to him, the William Lane Craig discussion. Now, just to set things up, this channel does about 65% creation science and intelligent design. And I often say, I'm getting in the habit of saying, intelligent design tells you that there's intelligent design, suggests the deity. Creationism identifies that deity as the Christian God. And archaeology also affirms that the intelligent designer is the Christian God, especially archaeology. And I like to share personal testimonies because that's also how the Lord has worked in individual lives. I'm working through some of the copyright issues because there's some great Christian testimonies that need to be shared. And so let's talk about William Ramsey, see if I have him. I happen to lose, unfortunately, the link. So if you'll forbear with me, I'm going to try to dig it up here. Hopefully I didn't lose it. Nope, I don't have it. Try to bring it up here. All right, I found it. So I'm going to just share my screen. Well, I'll read a little bit about this. Sir William Mitchell Ramsey was born in 1851 and died in 1939. He wrote well over 20 books and was quite a scholar. He held academic posts at Edinburgh, and various colleges at Oxford and Aberdeen. Among his professorships, he held the post of Regius Professor of Humanity at Aberdeen. Do you know of how Do you know how you become the Regius Professor? You get appointed by the regent, either by the king or the queen. This is the top academic post held for the brilliant minds, including Sir William Ramsey. He was an archaeologist. In his day, he was the foremost authority on Asia Minor. He was also a New Testament scholar without peer. Ramsey was born into a house of lawyers. 3 generations of distinguished lawyers came before him. He would later apply the skills of careful investigation and meticulous interpretation to his work, not as a lawyer, but as a historian. He was educated at Aberdeen, a place where he ended up as a professor. There he set himself apart from and above his classmates. As an undergrad, he had a clear sense of his calling to scholarship. He devoted himself to the life of discovery. He received a 3-year scholarship from Exeter College in Cambridge to research on location in Greek lands right after he earned his undergrad degree, and that set him on his career path. In academic circles, the prevailing thought of the day regarding the New Testament, including authorship of the books of the New Testament, was dominated by the work of Ferdinand Christian Bauer. His school was called the Tübingen School of Thought and Interpretation. Ramsey initially fell in with this group, which believed that most of Paul's epistles were not written by Paul. Perhaps only 4 were written by Paul. They believed most of the New Testament came much later, sometime in the second half of the 2nd century. These academics thought the book of Acts in particular was written much later. They are very suspicious of the book of Acts. In one of Ramsey's books, which is primarily about Paul's travels as recorded in the book of Acts, Ramsey writes, "I may fairly claim to have entered on this investigation without any prejudice in favor of the conclusion, which I shall now attempt to justify to the reader. On the contrary, I began with a mind unfavorable to it, for the ingenuity and apparent completeness of the Tübingen theory had at one time quite convinced me. The Tübingen theory had convinced Ramsey that Acts was a 2nd century composition, and by his own admission, he never relied on the book of Acts to give him any reliable report or evidence. After years of investigating every single detail, of retracing places mentioned in Acts, and looking at all of the authorities, Ramsey came to the exact opposite conclusion. He came to the conclusion that not only was Luke a great historian, but that Luke was among the historians of the first rank. Ramsey said, "The first and essential quality of the great historian is truth. What he says must be trustworthy." And he found Luke to be one of the most, if not the most trustworthy historians of the ancient world. Ramsey found that Luke's accounts, as recorded in both the Gospel and in the sequel to the Gospel, the book of Acts, to be trustworthy and true. For his efforts, Sir William Ramsey was knighted, even though he turned the entire academic scholarly community on its head when he transitioned from the higher critical view of the New Testament to accepting it with truthfulness. Among his many books is St. Paul the Traveler and Roman Citizen. There you can find his recordings and all of the conclusions of his life of discovery as a scholar. Do you have any thoughts, Patrick?
Sounds pretty amazing, actually.
And I'm having really bad allergies because of the lockdown. I haven't been able to get my allergy shots, so I'm really fighting allergies now. I would like to read some passages this is my favorite passage in the Bible, and it's easy to overlook because it looks like long lists of names. But when I was wrestling with my beliefs, I remember thinking on this chapter, and I said, this looks like a long list of facts. And when I heard myself saying that, facts, I said, the Bible isn't myths, it's facts. And so I'm just going to read this passage. To me, personally, this is my favorite passage in the entire Bible. So, and it was the first few verses were the ones that I believe William Ramsey was very involved in confirming, because a lot of people did not, they dismissed this part of the Gospels because the titles given to the various leaders here is like the Tetrarch, etc. They felt that was not, that was a later addition. This wasn't original, but then they found archaeological evidence that was indeed their titles. And that these are some, so actually, amazingly, those first two verses there in Luke chapter 3 were very important to William Ramsey's conversion from a skeptic to a believer. But young earth creationism, or let's say more technically young life creationism, as we're able to confirm that from various evidences that life is young on earth, it will confirm, kind of like in a historical sense, forensic history, forensic archaeology. That part is really trustworthy. And so that's been my personal and professional research interest. So let me share Luke chapter 3 and we'll read through it, because a lot of this channel is defined by this passage here. I'm going to skip just a couple parts. In the 15th year of the reign of Tiberius Caesar, Pontius Pilate being governor of Judea, and Herod being tetrarch of Galilee, and his brother Philip, tetrarch of the region of Iturea and Trachonitis, and Lysanias, tetrarch of Abilene, during the high priesthood of Annas and Caiaphas, the word of God came to John. Finding archaeological evidences for just that passage was a big deal, and that contributed to William Ramsey's fame. And so here in the 21st century, we in the creationist community now are following on with William Ramsey's work to confirm this through our study of genetics and molecular biology, etc. It relates to the work of Dr. John Sanford, Dr. Rob Carter, Nathaniel Jeanson, and others. Although I feel we have a ways to go, I think we've made great progress. So to me, this is one of the greatest passages in the Bible. Jesus, when he began his ministry, was about 30 years of age, being the son, as was supposed, of Joseph, the son of Heli, the son of Mathat, the son of Levi, the son of Melchi, the son of Janai, the son of Joseph, the son of Mattathias, the son of Amos, the son of Nahum, the son of Esli, the son of Nagai, the son of Maath, the son of Mattathias, the son of Simeon, the son of Josech, the son of Joda, the son of Joanan, the son of Risa, the son of Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, the son of Neri, the son of Melchi, the son of Adai, the son of Kosam, the son of Elmodam, the son of the son of Joshua, the son of Eliezer, the son of Joram, the son of Mathat, the son of Levi, the son of Simeon, the son of Judah, the son of Joseph, the son of Jonam, the son of Eliakim, the son of Malaiah, the son of Menah, the son of Mattatha, the son of Nathan, the son of David, the son of Jesse, the son of Obed, the son of Boaz, the son of Selah, the son of Nashon, the son of Aminadab, the son of Admin, the son of Arni, the son of Hezron, the son of Perez, the son of Judah, the son of Jacob, the son of Isaac, the son of Abraham, the son of Terah, the son of Nahor, the son of Serug, the son of Ru, the son of Peleg, the son of Eber, the son of Shelah, the son of Cainan, the son of Arphaxad, the son of Shem, the son of Noah, the son of Lamech, the son of Methuselah, the son of Enoch, the son of Jared, the son of Mahalaleel, the son of Cainan, the son of Enos, the son of Seth, the son of Adam, the son of God. Oh, praise the Lord. That is one of my favorite passages. Do you have any thoughts, Patrick?
Yeah, you did really well pronouncing all those names.
Oh, thank you. I've had practice because I've listened to this passage. It just does something for my soul to hear it. You know, of any passages like this, we're talking facts. These are brute facts. These aren't just wishful thinking.
Now, you like it because of the genealogy there? That's why, or?
Yeah, and then also there are names that pop out. Like, we had a show. I had a show where one of the variety shows where I talked about Nehemiah and Ezra, and so I'll show this here in in his genealogy. We have this here: Zerubbabel and Shealtiel. Zerubbabel and Shealtiel. They are mentioned in Nehemiah. We have archaeological evidence that strongly confirms Nehemiah on so many levels. The names there we found years later, years after the fact, that the names like Gashmu and Sanballat were real, lent a lot. And then the big thing is we found Nehemiah's wall only like in the last 10 years or so, or last 20. And it was poorly built, consistent with the idea it was built in 52 days. Just amazing. And the scholars are in agreement. This is for real. I believe in that book it mentions Zerubbabel and Shealtiel. If not, it's in Ezra, which is still tied to Nehemiah. And so those are names that are like, this brings it home. And then there's a parallel passage that talks about, like in Matthew, that talks about the lineage from David through the kings. We have so much evidence of the Davidic line of kings. Now this is through the non-royal lineage here, but it does end up in David. And it mentions Abraham. There's research on the Abraham modal haplotype. So not only are we looking for Y chromosomal Adam, there's interest in Abraham's DNA. So this is powerful. We're not, I'm a little more cautious than my fellow creationists to endorse everything that creationists say, because I think some of the work needs a lot more work. And part of that is just getting better gene sequences, because we're not quite there yet. So that's really all I had to say about William Ramsey. Do you have any thoughts while I look up the next Bible passage?
Well, I think it's pretty interesting that that over time and as archaeology, as they dig up, more ruins and things of that nature, God is giving us little tidbits here and there to, buttress our faith, right? He's not just leaving us hanging out, blowing out in the wind. It's pretty awesome, really.
Yes. I've said this before. I think if I were born 100 or 200 years ago, I don't know that I'd become a Christian, because I just have that very skeptical mind. But in the 21st century, it's like, just when you would least expect that God would provide reasons to believe, here it's just coming in like an avalanche for those willing to seek it. I mean, it's not so obvious that an atheist will be forced to believe. It's subtle enough that if he wants to walk away, he can just close his eyes. God's not going to force him into the kingdom. But for those that are seeking him, we have evidence of design and DNA, and also DNA is a testimony, I think, to the youth of humanity. And so, and we're going to touch on that a little bit today, because they're brothers in Christ that, believe the world is old, and I've been there, done that, and let me just, so the question comes up, you know, aside from the old Earth, old universe question, I know old Earth creationists believe there's a variety of beliefs that God worked a miracle. They're distinguished from the theistic evolutionists who think everything just evolved naturally, that God used natural laws to create all the complexity of life we see today. And the old Earth creationists are definitely not that. We have ID proponents that are, it's a very subtle position, like Michael Behe, that believes in design, doesn't really specify how the design came about, but he doesn't think, he has some issues with, you know, kind of a naturalistic account, but then that's, you know, it's design versus randomness. He doesn't really get into kind of the, you know, the metaphysics of miracles, etc. So to criticize the theistic evolutionists, a lot of times people will appeal to the Genesis account. They'll start discussing that and saying, you know, what hermeneutics should we apply, etc., etc. For those who profess to be Christians and are theistic evolutionists, I'm going to confront them with passages like this, the wedding at Cana. Excuse me. On the third day, there was a wedding at Cana in Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Jesus also was invited to the wedding with his disciples. When the wine ran out, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "Woman, what does this have to do with me? My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Now there were 6 stone water jars there for the Jewish rites of purification, each holding 20 or 30 gallons. Jesus said to the servants, "Fill the jars with water." And they filled them up to the brim. And he said to them, Now draw some out and take it to the master of the feast." So they took it. When the master of the feast tasted the water, now become wine, and did not know where it came from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew, the master of the feast called the bridegroom and said to him, "Everyone serves the good wine first, and when people have drunk freely, then the poor wine. But you have kept the good wine until now." This, the first of his signs, Jesus did at Cana in Galilee, and manifested his glory, and his disciples believed him. So I'm going to challenge a theistic evolutionist. I said, how do you read this? I'd really be curious. It's like, how does Joshua Swamidass read this? How does Rob Rowe or Inspiring Philosophy or any of these people that I've been told are theistic evolutionists, how do they read this? Do they think that the water turning to wine was through a natural process, or some sort of miraculous act that converted the water into wine? And I'd really like to confront them and say, what do you think? And if they say, oh, that's definitely a miracle, I said, so how would you classify it? Would you classify it like a miracle of special creation? I'd be curious to hear what they have to say. But it's like, okay, so you're willing to admit a miracle can create new forms, you can transform matter this way. You're fine with that. So if I give you evidence like James Tour's talk, and then the talk we had with our power panel on Wednesday night with the 4 PhD chemists and biomedical engineers, and then me, the dumb kid on the block. If I give you evidence that life, even just DNA itself, didn't look like it'd be the product of a natural process, are you going to be willing to accept it's a miracle? Or are you going to, on faith, say, no, it's a natural process? Because at this point, it's a big step of faith. It's not based on any experiment. And I wanted to point out that James Tour really called Joshua Swamidass's silliness on the RNA world in some of his other views, really, frankly. And you could tell this is leading to Joshua Swamidass. I'm like, So you're willing to accept this on testimony, but then when the science is facing you and staring you in the face that likely a miracle happened, you're going to insist on faith, pure faith, that this didn't happen by a miracle, even when it's becoming so obvious at this point. And what I take exception to, it's like, okay, if that's what you believe. But if Swamidass is going to advertise this as good science, I'm just like, I've got issues with that. I've got serious issues with that. So do you have any thoughts here, Patrick? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, I would hope that people are able to just look at their environment and also read what the Bible says and understand the type of writing that's in the Bible and look at it in the proper way in that context. But also, don't try to make a mole out of a molehill. I think right now we should know that the things that are written in the Bible are, they're true. And to me, I think a lot of this is patently obvious. It's just that our sinful nature, for whatever reason, just tries to reject it, and that includes when we look at our environment and try to reconcile science, evolution, creation. I just hope that people can, learn how to critically think and exercise their faith and hopefully we'll come out of this better than what we deserve, I suppose.
Yes, thank you. So and this is a nice segue into one more topic that's related to the Swamidass, William Lane Craig, Ken Ham affair. Let me just make sure it's on my docket. I said here that ID is easier to defend than young Earth creationism and creation, or young cosmos creationism. And so I actually feel a lot of empathy for old Earth creationists who are like, they'll believe, like Stephen Meyer, that there had to be instances of miraculous special creation somewhere along the way. It's not very specific. I feel more friendly to that than I do theistic evolution, where they say this is good science. I have real issues. In fact, Stephen Meyer spoke at my church, and someone was saying, I believe in science and I also believe in Christian faith. Stephen Meyer said, well, the issue isn't one or the other, but he was trying to point out that Darwinian evolution isn't really good science, neither is abiogenesis. That's the issue. And people are trying to frame this as like, what I liked about Stephen Meyer, even though he's not a young Earth creationist, he's framing this in terms of the pure science. And we'll see that Ken Ham frames a lot of this totally in terms of theology, and if someone doesn't agree, it's heresy, and just we'll cover that a little later. And so I'll say Hugh Ross had a big influence, positive influence on my life when I nearly left the Christian faith. It was his organization that had people like Fuzz Rana and Richard Deem in particular, that was covering a lot of the biological issues with abiogenesis that we're hearing now even better articulated 20 years later. And so the reason I'm saying it's easier to defend ID than young creationism, where ID doesn't necessarily, talk about 6,500 years. Many times they'll assume the accepted age of the Earth by the mainstream. And the reason it's easy is you could take accepted laws of physics, accepted laws of statistics, accepted laws of chemistry, and you can argue that abiogenesis wasn't a natural event. And then you can also criticize the steps of evolution, such as eukaryotic. You don't have to undo. You can use a lot of what accepted mainstream science in other fields. Young Earth and young cosmos creationism, it's like everything's being turned over. That's also what makes it exciting, but it also makes it difficult to defend. And having gone through a physics program and just like, this is a totally different situation where we're looking at major laws of physics like electromagnetism, one of the 5 pillars of physics, what I call the 5 pillars, and then general relativity. Those are just two huge areas. And then 6,500 years is a lot to compress. The other thing is with abiogenesis and special, with the idea of a miracle creating it, we invoke a supernatural act. With things like Noah's flood and distant starlight, we're actually trying to look for naturalistic mechanisms, most of us anyway, to explain the mechanics of Noah's flood. We're not necessarily appealing to miracles as much as we would to the origin of life for Noah's flood. And then distant starlight, we're using a lot of physics. We're looking for naturalistic explanations. So the irony is ID makes it easy to appeal to the supernatural. The young Earth creationists are actually looking for naturalistic explanations, and that's just makes it very difficult. And so this is why I'm going to sympathize with where William Lane Craig is, who's not a scientist, where he's coming from, and then where a lot of the people in the audience that are sympathetic, who were physics students like myself, wrestling with these questions. And we'll go into more detail there. Patrick, do you have any thoughts?
Not really. I kind of echo what you said, and it's when I first saw this video with William Lane Craig, I was kind of wondering where he leaned as far as evolution is concerned, because I didn't really know it up until this time, and it was interesting for him to speak about that and to articulate what he thought about it, and it was very interesting to hear him speak these things. And it sounds like he's gone through a process of maybe struggling with it himself. You know what I mean? He's a brilliant man, but he's not a scientist, right? He's a philosopher. So
yes.
You know what I mean?
Philosopher, theologian, and he argued very well for the resurrection of Christ. And I was so blessed he spoke at my church. And the thing is when I was wrestling with these issues, I said we're just bulldozing the other side when it comes to abiogenesis. That's such it's like
it's a slam dunk.
Yeah, I was like, oh Lord, just the touchdown pass. I'm there in the end zone. I just have to catch it. Just let me not drop the ball when I debate James Downer. There's no excuse for me losing that debate. You just made it easy. I just have not to mess it up. But if I debated like the distant starlight problem, I would have, even as a physics student, that's a debate I don't want. It's a discussion I'll take, and I'll just have to say that there are just a lot of things that we haven't resolved, whereas the abiogenesis thing is so clear. So like you said, it's a slam dunk. So that's why I have a lot more sympathy with what's going on with William Lane Craig, and I'm praying for the man. So did you want to go ahead and do your presentation on that, and then I'll also offer my
Can
thoughts.
I share a YouTube video with this?
Okay.
Or is that not allowed?
It depends on the channel. Okay, so this is what's going to happen. And let me alert the readers, the viewers. If YouTube says you can't do that, they're going to interrupt our stream. And all you have to do is just shut off the videos that we're watching. It'll take about 2 minutes to recover, okay? But I think this is important enough.
Well, I hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah. If we show it in like 1 or 2 minute segments, we might be able to get away with it.
They're going to be pretty short segments, I think. So
okay, so The way to do this is you just put it up on YouTube.
I do know how to do it. I do know how to do it. I'm just wondering about
Great,
the
fabulous.
technicalities
Okay,
of it.
so I'm going to shut off my mic and you go on ahead.
All right. So this is going to be pretty short. I'm not, interested in giving a long diatribe on this necessarily. These are just some things that kind of spoke to me during watching this, and I was kind of suspicious of Swamidass a little bit. He's not a stupid guy either. I'm not gonna kid myself, but he does have an agenda, and if you do watch this video from beginning to end, you'll see the agenda pretty clearly. And before I ever watched the video, I was wondering about this, and so I just immediately skipped to the very end and watched the end of some of his questions for Dr. Craig, and I was like, yeah, that's his agenda. So anyway, let me get this shared here and just point out a few things. This shouldn't take too long. All right. So we're just going to listen to this first clip, and I just have a quick comment to make about it, and then we'll move on to the next one, and then the next one. Can you not hear that?
Oh, I can't hear it, so you might have to reshare it with audio turned on.
Not sure how to do that.
Yeah, just do a stop share. Here, let me kill this, and yeah, just go ahead and restart it, and then just click the share audio in the lower left corner when you bring it up.
Just a second here.
All right, I think Patrick had to take a call, so it's nice to see everyone here, and so I'm just going to fill in while he needs to take care of some business here. How this show came together, Patrick was emailing me, and he wanted kind of my thoughts on the William Lane Craig thing with Ken Ham, and I didn't even know it existed. So this is all news to me, and I said, well, it'd be nice to do something on Friday night because it's kind of lonely here, and I want to just fellowship with my friends. I'm not trying to, if there are other shows on other Christian or creationist YouTubes, I'm sorry, but I just wanted to hang out with my friends, and I said, oh, this is great. Patrick wants to be on, wants to talk about this topic. So I said, well, let's go ahead and pursue it. So that's how this all began. And so I actually got that's kind of how I got dragged into even watching something on hostile pseudoscience, Swamidass's website. So now, just out of, I don't know how long Patrick will be there, but let me see what I think the last thing on the docket, and some people are already asking, I'll cover a little bit of it now, is Heather, evolutionary biologist Heather Heying. Heather Heying. She's an evolutionary biologist, and she said some of the most sane things I've heard and politically incorrect, and I loved it. So she was asked, the topic of the video she was on was the decaying. Let me make sure I have the right title. I'll just read the title so I could see this. Evolutionary biologists, an evolutionary biologist, which is Heather Heying, reveals how society is losing its grip on what makes us men and women. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is that's so politically incorrect. And I said, you know what? It's really great that an evolutionary biologist is coming out and saying enough is enough of what's going on, that we have to suppress the differences between men and women. And I'll never forget, there's this show on Tucker Carlson. Someone named Catalina of Catalina magazine came on, and Tucker was commenting on the fact, let me see what the title was. Let me make sure. The American Medical Association was taking issue with a study that said, you know, women feed infants, breastfeed infants. That was like not politically correct. And they had to say, oh, we have to say that men can feed infants too. I'm just like, this is a medical magazine. Is it like politically incorrect to point out that women lactate and make milk that the infants can feed on, and that men don't do this? So let me just pull up the title. Let me see if I could pull it up here. Hopefully it won't kill my my connection. Tucker Carlson, breastfeeding. Okay, let's see. It was the breastfeeding controversy, and evolutionary biologist Heather Heying was, you know, she's kind of not the most confrontational. Yeah, here it is. This is, let me just share this headline. Patrick, anytime you want to come back, just let me know. I'm going to share this headline here.
Yeah, I'm ready to go. Hopefully this works.
Okay, I'm just gonna share this headline. Tucker Carlson, he's a Fox News he's a Fox News host. He says it shuts down a guest claiming breastfeeding is not natural and beautiful. And so Tucker Carlson is saying, what's the problem with pointing out that this is natural? It's a natural function of being a female to breastfeed. And this was a medical journal being attacked for pointing that out. And so it was refreshing to hear a biologist come out and say that there are differences that are natural that cause different behaviors. She is also so bold as to say, okay, on the population level, males will tend to be kind of in the fields where they do things that are related to numbers, and they're good at that. And, you know, so these would be the engineering and STEM fields. Women on the population level in general will succeed better in relationship type industries. And I'm like, why is that so politically incorrect to point that out? She said that doesn't govern absolutely what happens for each individual individually. And then she said some more, and she pointed out, she said, you know, in the hunter-gatherer cultures, and they did a lot of studies on this, they said, okay, what division of labor did we see among males and females? Just a simple question. She said across 50 cultures, the hunters were men, and the ones who stayed at home were women. And she said, okay, if this is really basic. If you're pregnant, it's probably not a good idea to go out there in the water and start hunting whales, okay? Or being on long journeys and hunting expeditions. If you are pregnant and or like say nursing, it's better you just stay. If you're nursing a child, you know, you're not probably going to be going out there trying to kill an elephant, you know, while you're nursing a child. He said that's just basic. It makes sense. Now she pointed out something really interesting that I didn't even know, that she said even today, if you'll see like what things the women, you know, like let's say there's some sort of cooking event, the men like to cook the meat and the women the vegetables. I'm like, I never noticed that. The men are, you know, if they're gonna cook something, it's gonna be the meat. And she's just making all these observations, and I'm like, why is this so politically incorrect? And I was refreshing to hear an evolutionary biologist come out in defense of common sense. So she ended up being kind of one of my favorite people already. And so let me see, and we'll talk more about her. Patrick, go ahead.
All right, let's just do a quick audio test first. I want to make sure that this audio is coming through clearly. So here it goes.
Soul, everything whole. When we talk about evolutionary science, we don't mean to reject God's involvement or providence in common descent. We also don't mean to.
Can you hear that?
Yes, it's good enough. It's good enough. I'm going to stop my mic so you can hear. You might want to shut off your mic.
All right, here's the first clip.
It is important. But anyways, let's get to the main event here. I think it's a really interesting exchange that we can have about this. So back in December, it says December 16th, Kenham posted this first comment. Now, he posted another comment early January because he got a bit of heat for this. But let's step through this. And I'm going to read it out loud to you and give you a chance to respond to it, tell us what you think about it. So William Lane Craig is held up by many as a great apologist for Christianity. But the fact is, he represents one of the major problems with much of the church and most Christian institutions. Do you want to start there, or do you want me to go to the
No, let's get into the specifics.
Watch his short video and see a pseudo-intellectual arrogance that mocks God and his word and instead exalts the word of fallible and sinful man above God's holy and fallible word. He is destructive to the church and will have to give an account to God for his blatant compromise of God's word and for leading many astray.
Yeah. Now, here, Kenham launches an attack, not on my view, but on me personally. He questions my personal character. He accuses me of being a pseudo-intellectual and of being arrogant. And with respect to the first, I think that is just easy to refute. I publish with the finest academic presses in the world and in peer-reviewed professional journals. There's nothing pseudo-intellectual about the scholarship that I'm engaged in. And as for arrogance, this is a very, very serious personal charge to make against another Christian, because that's a terrible sin and character fault. The Bible says that God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. And if I thought for a moment that I were arrogant and that God was opposing me, I would step down from Christian ministry, Josh. I would step back and get out of the public arena and try to put my spiritual house in order before ever daring to be a public representative of Christ.
So I just wanted to point out here that, Mr. Craig's right. Ken Ham, he attacks his character instead of really attacking what Dr. Craig is saying, and it's kind of, you don't really want to do that. It's kind of like bad form, and I kind of wish people would be more, I guess, observant about this kind of thing. It's better in these kind of discussions just to attack what they say instead of just try to attack the person's character like Ken Ham did here. So I'm going to go on to the next one.
Can I say something here?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to attack Ken Ham's character. There were some really nasty things that, a matter of public record, that it's been kind of like not talked about a lot because the people are trying to maintain the peace. But he stabbed a lot of young Earth creationists in the back. There's a reason there's a split between Creation Ministries International and Answers in Genesis. It was a nasty split because it used to be only Answers in Genesis, like Answers in Genesis USA or America, Answers in Genesis Australia. And his behavior, it's like when I saw that, I said, I would never want to do business with this guy. I felt he was a bad actor. So, we talk about, if he wants to attack people's character, I have issues with that. He's an amusement park. He's an amusement park operator. He's not a creation science researcher. He's an amusement park operator. $100 million ARC, amusement park. And he had advertised as his creation museum. It's like, come here and you'll believe. I'm just like, okay, so that attitude is like, okay, my amusement park is going to help you with the faith, not actually dealing with the science. And the reason I'm kind of bitter about this is there I was about ready to go to physics graduate school. I was wrestling with these problems of the distant starlight problem, radiometric dating. And all I could hear from his camp was, you're just a compromiser, you're just a heretic, you're the problem, what's wrong with Christianity? And like, I would really just like to have some answers from physics. It'd be reassuring because I see intelligent design trying to answer these questions with pure physics. It's reassuring. But when someone just shuts down your brain and just dismisses your questions and your doubts and your concerns and calls you heretic, that sends a really bad message. And I could say that drives people out of the church. People like him nearly drove me out of the church. I'm just saying that. So I say that as a young Earth creationist. That sort of personal attack was just, to me, not cool. And also his conduct with his fellow Christians, fellow young Earth creationists, I thought that was disgusting. I was there in the 2008 International Conference on Creationism, and I met people who were part of the organizations that he shafted, and I'm just like, yeah, I don't like this. This is not good. This is, it looked like a big power grab, and he and his family are making a lot of money running this amusement park. So I'm just like, yeah, whereas William Lane Craig spoke at my church, he lifted my faith. An old Earth so he's, kind of friendly to evolution. Hugh Ross did a lot, who's an old Earth creationist, lifted my faith. Stephen Meyer did a lot, lifted my faith. Carolyn Crocker, who's kind of, doesn't deal with that. She suffered a destruction of her career because she stood up for intelligent design and her Christian faith. But she's not a young earth creationist. And he's calling them the problem with Christianity. I have big issues with that. All right, so go ahead and roll it. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Sal. We're going to go on to the next clip here, and I'll just go ahead and play it.
Understands that Jesus is greater, right?
Yes, I think that's right. We need to be united on the essentials and then have charity to one another with regard to the non-essentials.
So I think this is really critical. So my critique, to throw it in, of Cana is that I think he's forgotten.
So I thought that was interesting that William Craig said that as well. And what he means is, have a little charity on the edge cases, but keep the fundamentals amongst all of us, right? That's what he's talking about there. I don't know, Sal, do you want to say anything on that one?
Yeah, I became a young earth creationist because I was able to stay in the church even though I was wrestling through these issues, and I was an old earth creationist. That I could be loved on and accepted without being called a heretic or insinuated as some sort of compromiser or someone who's like a wolf in sheep's clothing. I was just a struggling student of science and just trying to work through this and crawling to find any scrap of evidence that might kind of encourage me, that encourage me to believe, encourage me to believe in the Christian faith, and that's all. And we can say some negative things about Swamidass and his conduct later too, but I just wanted to say I really love William Lane Craig. I'm praying for him, and there's a proverb I wanted to quote. If you rebuke a wise man, he will love you. If you rebuke a wise man, he will love you. So the word of God tells me that even God himself, who views a man as wise, that wise man can be mistaken. He can be mistaken, but God will still consider him a good man, a wise man. And so even though I disagree with William Lane Craig's views about origins, I consider him a wise man and a man that has his heart in the right place. So there is room for charity. And so we can rebuke his views. That's on the table. He will love us if we can correct him. So let's go ahead and roll.
All right, here's the next clip.
Is it worse now than it used to be? Like, what's going on?
Oh,
So here they're kind of talking about, how people discuss matters of religion, philosophy, science even. Here we go.
well, certainly civil discourse has become very, very divisive. For example, it's very common today to accuse people of lying, not just being mistaken, but deliberately lying. It didn't used to be that way back in the 70s and the 80s, but I guess it was probably under the Clinton years that political discourse just became really, really ugly. And so now it's common to hurl around these accusations of being a liar rather than simply saying you're mistaken or you're wrong. So I do think that the political discourse especially has gotten really uncivil in our day.
So this one just kind of spoke to me about, from academia to, the blue collar worker and how we treat each other. And so even these guys deal with, people who calling somebody a liar, a lot of times is very difficult, right? It's difficult to actually prove that.
Yeah.
But go ahead, Sal.
Yeah, there's a difference between being mistaken and lying. I mean, if every time I got a test question wrong, I'd be called a liar many times. It's just like, I didn't know, I didn't understand, I was confused. And like I said, that proverb that talked about the wise man, it's acknowledging a good man can be mistaken. He can be down a path that's just stupid, but his heart is in the right place. We have an example of that with King Jehoshaphat. He got into some bad situations, but God had mercy on him. And so if William Lane Craig is teaching things that are wrong, taking his people down the wrong path, that doesn't make him someone that's like, woe to you, because we have examples in the Testament where the kings of Israel, good men like Jehoshaphat, made some bad calls, and God did not just like rain terrible judgment on them. They were rebuked by God himself and corrected, but God didn't, God looked favorably. He expressed his love for these kings. And that's the way I look at William Lane Craig. So I do think he's mistaken. So just for the record, I think he's mistaken about origins. I think he's mistaken in being too associated with Josh Swamidass. So go on, Patrick, if you had some more thoughts.
Yeah, I'm just going to go to the next clip here. And I think this is Swamidass here. And, even though I don't like the direction that Swamidass is heading, I'm pretty sure, I think this is Swamidass. And let's roll this clip here.
Rose, I think, I have many friends that are young earth creationists. I have many family members that are there. I think a lot of people give up on them and think that they're really beyond reach and they're hopeless, but I actually have found really great connection and friendship with them. I think that there's an opportunity for a really meaningful exchange. My concern when I look at young earth creationism is setting aside the scientific disagreements. I mean, everyone knows what those are. And probably the biggest issue is honestly this theological issue when at times some young earth creationists put Jesus at the center. I mean, actually they don't put Jesus at the center, they put creationism at the center. But beyond that, sometimes young earth creationism can be very insular. They don't really engage with people who think differently.
So even though I don't agree with Swamidass, he makes kind of a good point here about I think a lot of people, especially in academia, they have a tendency you might get hung up on the creationism evolution, especially if you're a scientist or in the sciences. And I guess my point here is don't get so hung up on creationism and things like that you completely kiss Jesus goodbye. You know what I mean? Really try to maintain a good relationship with Christ, and that's all I had to say about that particular clip. I don't know if you have anything to say, Sal, on that one. You're muted, Sal.
Yeah, oh, sorry. We'll have a chance to pick on Swamidass, and I did have. There's some. I don't know if it was on this. In the clips you showed, but I did catch some things he said that my irony meter blew. And let me see, what did he say? Yeah, my goodness, my irony meter blew. People, Swamidass is talking about, the problem with the creationists, they don't want to admit their mistakes. That's true of a lot of people, but my irony meter blew. I said, Josh, James Stewart just called you out on your endorsement of abiogenesis and RNA world. Are you gonna represent that? Can you in good conscience say this is good science? That you want people, okay, he wants to label Christians that think this is a miracle. He wants to have them kind of bear a scarlet letter. I have real problems with that. That is just like really not cool, Swamidass. You got called out on your bad science that you're advocating be good science, and you're going to label people that are actually telling more faithful to the truth you're gonna label them and marginalize them in society. That is just like not cool, Swamidass. That's what I call Swamidassery. You get on the screen, you act so nice and calm and civil, and you stab people in the back like that. You stab your brothers and sisters in the back. So, my irony meter just blew. You see, I usually don't get exercise, but that just made my blood pressure boil, because we've had 2 nights here where we showcased the argument against abiogenesis. And for Swamidass to go around saying people don't admit their mistakes, it's like, dude, you got to look yourself in the mirror and look at what you're doing to people. Are you going to label people like Change Tan and Rob Stadler? Let's say they just graduated schools. Do you want them to be bearing the scarlet letter and destroy their careers? Dude, that is just like not cool. So my irony meter blew. Probably that was totally off topic, Patrick, but sorry. Let's go ahead and roll the tape.
Yeah, no problem. So I pretty much agree with you. So this next set of clips is basically the piece of resistance of this whole deal, and it kind of shows kind of what Swamidass is doing. He's basically capping off this whole presentation with some questions to William Lane Craig, and you can totally see his agenda, and you can totally see how he's taking people like William Lane Craig and trying to draw out of them their stances on evolution, so that he can further his agenda. Anyway, I'll roll the clip here. We'll watch it for a while.
What you're saying, to reframe it or to restate it, is that we need to listen to each other. We need to read each other, across it and say, okay, so I have this and I understand this, but can I see what you're holding too? Can I touch it and look at it? Maybe tell me about it, and let's just think about it together. And I think you also raise the issue of questions. And I would say that a really key thing that we need to be very good about, whatever expertise is actually taking good faith questions seriously, engaging them with courage, honesty, and rigor. So the final question, the one that I thought was really good, this is the last one, it's a fun one, and then
this is it right here.
And once again, I really want to thank you for joining, and I hope you'll join the channel, subscribe to our mailing list at Peaceful Science, and pretty soon we'll also have the transcript out for this exchange as well.
Oh, okay.
But the question was, it was from a guy who asked, well, if you were to guess. So this is a guess, okay? There's no theology hanging on this, okay? And some sort of, so we're not asking you to confess your personal beliefs. This is just a wild guess, and it's a playful question. If you were to get a time machine and be able to travel back to Jesus in Jerusalem and ask him, is evolution true or not? What do you think he would say?
Oh, I feel quite certain he would say, what do you mean? Explain it to me. I've never heard of it. And then you would have to lay out for him the theory. We must not think of the incarnation as Superman disguised as Clark Kent.
So this gets back to like some of Andrew Locke's stuff and the hidden or in the cryptic incarnation, that Jesus actually laid aside some things. He laid aside some things when he became a human amongst us.
Yes, that's right. And there's no reason to think that Jesus would have been able to answer questions.
So let's say you explain it to him. Let's take the thought experiment further. You explain it to him. What do you
Here it comes.
Oh, well, he would say, well, I guess I don't see any conflict between that and what Moses teaches in Genesis.
Yeah, okay, so here's another question then. Let's say we get to heaven. We see him now. We're not going back in time, we're going forward to heaven.
Swamidass's grin gets bigger and bigger.
Before me, Bill, and you'll probably know before many of us watching. So you can kind of give us like what your bet is on this, and we find out together. You ask Jesus, is evolution true? Like, did you make things through a process of providentially governed common descent? What do you think he'll say?
I'm not sure he would be committed to common descent past the Cambrian explosion. But I think that he would say that a great deal of the biological life forms that we observe today are related by common descent.
What about human common descent? Do we share common ancestors with the great apes? What do you think he would say? Of course, this is all highly speculative, right? We don't know.
See, when you say, what would Jesus say? What you're really asking is, what does the evidence indicate? Because that's what we're trying to surmise.
See, I think he would do something different. I think he would answer kind of like when people ask him about taxes. I think that we would come to him with one answer, and he would know the answer. We'd be like, hey, that wasn't the most important thing to me.
Oh, well, now you're being clever, Josh. I mean,
well, Jesus was clever. I'm trying to say he would give a clever answer.
I mean, okay, yeah, and yeah, he could be clever like that and evasive. But I think what the questioner wants to know is, what really is the truth about these matters? And I suspect the truth is someplace.
So that's pretty much it. I mean, they talk a little bit more, but what I got from that is Swamidass really trying to draw out a certain response from William Lane Craig. That's what I got. It's kind of nuanced, and I could tell that Craig was a little bit hesitant, right? I think he kind of knew where this was going, but not quite. So anyway, that's my commentary on that.
Let me see something. Can you take down your screen share?
Yeah.
Because that'll help the audio. See, it's not going to give us that echo. And you can bring it up if you anything you want to bring up again. That was just more of a technical thing.
Well, let me say just one last thing. Dr. Tour today, when I watched his last presentation on YouTube, which was awesome, by the way, Dr. Tour did say that he is really good friends with Swamidass. And the takeaway there is that, Dr. Tour is a smart guy, and it sounds like he maintains relationships that even he doesn't agree with. You know what I'm saying? So
no. Yeah, I see that. And then also Swamidass will do a lot of like whining and dining, trying to reach out, and I think it really is his personality to be very diplomatic. He was raised in a very Christian home and missionary type parents, and so I think that carries over in his personality. Very likable, you can be chummy with him, but his Wall Street Journal article was like the last straw, and also the way that he's running his hostile pseudoscience. Not the way he ran it, but just the whole organization, because I was there. This was just a disgusting experience. I didn't like the crowd he hung around. I'm just like, dude, I argued stuff. You're just letting people throw ad homs at me and just tee off. And I actually put forward some pretty good science. And, I'm just like, okay, I just don't like your crowd. I don't like the circles you hang around. You keep saying this is good science and it's garbage. And it's like, I don't know what you're about, but I don't like it. And so I think you can be very good friends with James Tour. Speaking of which, after we close this topic out, go ahead and have some words about James Tour. But I wanted to say I'm disappointed that Craig has certain viewpoints. But in his defense, because this came up when I was part of the Presbyterian Church of America, and I had really just changed denominations because I'm not into infant baptism after some thought. So I left on good terms. I was a member in good standing, and it's something I'll cherish for a lot of my life. Our presbytery had I may put this in the video description, or let's see if I have it. Yeah, let me drop it in the chat here. a lot of the people, so this was, let me just show it on, let me just do a quick screen share. I'm not going to read the whole thing. But I think it sort of echoes my views. It was an open letter to our brothers and elders of Westminster Presbytery from the Potomac Presbytery. I was from the Potomac Presbytery. And they list a whole bunch of people that were inerrantists. So my presbytery had lots of young earth creationists, but they had issues with, they felt Westminster was being too stern on people that in their churches that may not be young earth creationists. And our presbytery was very concerned about that. They said, many of us accept your viewpoint, but we don't view it as a deal breaker if an old earth creationist is qualified, wants to be an elder, is elected to be an elder. And they pointed out something interesting, and I'm going to read something about A.A. Hodge here. What would you have us make of this? Your assertion that there's nothing in the text to even hint at the views you condemn is surely too strong. Strikes as fundamentals. How can this be so? Surely we can distinguish between faithfulness to the broad historicity of the essentials to the gospel and the difficulty of construing certain scriptural texts in relation to statements of scientific cosmology. Are you really declaring men such as C. Hodge, Shedd, Beatty, Adger, A.A. Hodge, Warfield, Bavnik, Machen, Schaefer, and Gerstner, as well as many lesser but faithful servants here in Potomac, are not fit to be ministers of the gospel in the PCA? And again, having myself come through the old earth creationist viewpoint, it was easy to reject evolutionism, very easy, because we just use straightforward chemistry and physics. Mainstream would just destroy that. But the question of some of the young cosmos and cosmology is very much more difficult. And a lot of godly men, it's like, well, we'd like to believe this, but all our measurements in the lab don't agree. So far, the observations we've made make it difficult. We make observations in the lab that show abiogenesis is just ridiculous. And James Tour highlighted that a lot of what's claimed to prove abiogenesis is actually just false hype, and it's misleading. But that's not the case with the distant starlight or radiometric dating. It's a totally different ballgame, because at that point, the young earth creationists are actually trying to find naturalistic explanations. Whereas the miracle of the first life, we do accept it as miraculous. We don't need to find a mechanism. So it's a different animal. And it's very hard, given that you go to church and then you go to your lab and you see something that doesn't quite jive. Now, that can be reconciled. That's why I suffered through graduate school. And it was when I was in graduate school, I began to get the break, when I heard that the mainstream cosmology models had problems. Now, I'm going to point out to something that, as far as being overly theological, John Calvin said that those who believe in heliocentrism and who are not geocentrists are of the devil. I said, there's no need to be going that way. There's no need for any of that. And besides, Calvin was wrong. And having been a Presbyterian, I could really appreciate the irony there. So I think there has to be order of charity, and they specifically in that letter they mentioned B.B. Warfield. So let me share something about B.B. Warfield. And I'm not saying that just because B.B. Warfield said so, it's good. It's not. But I am pointing out there are defenders of inerrancy. We cannot classify them in any way being liberal or enemies of the faith. So this is the Wikipedia article on B.B. Warfield. He was a theologian, 1951 to 1921 at Princeton Theological Seminary. And let me see. Let me see. He was a pioneer of inerrancy of the Bible. He was a pioneer of inerrancy of the Bible. So in 1881, Warfield wrote a joint article with A.A. Hodge on the inspiration of the Bible. It drew attention because of its scholarly and forceful defense of the inerrancy of the Bible. In many of his writings, Warfield attempted to demonstrate that the doctrine of biblical inerrancy was simply Orthodox Christian teaching and not merely a concept invented in the 19th century. His passion was to refute the liberal element within Presbyterianism and within Christianity at large. Throughout his life, he continued to write books and articles, which are still widely held today. And I just noticed, so there was a dispute on his views on evolution, but so this whole thing that saying William Lane Craig, doesn't have regard for the Bible. It's like, this is something. God is the one that knows where people's hearts are. I can just say that he's mistaken and he's wrong. I'm not going to go so far to say that I know where his heart is. And I'm just going to leave it at that. I'll say, yeah, it causes problems, but I wouldn't go so far to say that it's destroying people's faith. As I said, it was because the church wasn't insisting I be a young earth creationist that I was able to stay and be healed and have time to ponder these things and explore it and go to school at the same time and try to wrestle with these questions. But to have it be thrown in my face that I'm, the insinuation that I'm right down there with the enemies of the Christian faith, with the atheists, that's very, very hurtful. So as a young earth creationist, I'll say, hey guys, I know where you are. I'm not going to call you as an atheist or enemy of Christianity because if you right now believe the earth is old, I'm not going to label you those things. I think you're deeply mistaken, but we can be brothers. Unless you say that you've rejected the Bible and behave like those atheists, I'm not going to treat you like an atheist or an unbeliever or enemy of the faith. And I can say that I think there are people in good conscience that are inerrantist and they accept evolution. I think that's unfortunate, and I hope that they turn around. But I'm not gonna be in the place of God and judge what the thoughts and intentions are. That's for the Lord. And I will say, I know people that are young earth creationists now. They went through that change of becoming a Christian, and then they were still an evolutionist for a while, then became an old earth creationist, became a young earth creationist. And that's a beautiful thing. And I want to support people on that journey. I don't want to be getting in their face and saying, you're right there with the enemies of the faith. I can't bring myself to go that far. I'll say you're wrong and that it's not consistent, but I'll just let it go at that point. If they are caring for the widows and the orphans in their distress and doing all the other things that the Lord calls them on, that would weigh. That's a bigger indicator for me. And like I said, I'm sorry I have to say this, but when I saw Ken Ham just stabbing other young earth creationists in the back financially, I said that's just not cool. So Patrick, I'll give you the last word on that, and then we're going to just briefly talk about our last topic, Heather Heying.
Go for it. I'm not much for last words.
This is the last word on the Swamidass affair.
I think, just you got to be kind of wary of men in general, right? We're all sinful creatures, and it's sometimes very difficult to unravel all this, especially when you try to look backward in time, right? When we try to look at fossils, when we try to look at the age of the universe, you know, we as human beings are very limited in that capacity, right? We don't have video cameras like we do now. We don't have, you know, the evidence is not as clear as we would like it to be. You know what I mean?
Amen. And God in his providence is giving it to us. And I just say, you know, just be a little patient. You know, and I sensed this even some years ago. I said, you know, Lord, it's a big leap of faith to be a young earth creationist. So I'm just going to trust you. And here it is in 2021, stuff is coming out that is questioning the Big Bang Theory. And I'm like, yeah, this, you know, in God's time, he'll provide it. He'll test us to see if we're faithful. And sometimes, you know, we just need a little prodding like Gideon. It's like, Lord, you know, this is too big a step of faith. You got to help me. And I think that's where a lot of people are. And, you know, and then like with Swamidass, I'm just like, dude, you're pretending this is science. It's pure faith on your part. You got to stop doing that. That's what I, you know, that's where I draw the line. I said, you know, when you start advertising junk science as good science and you start labeling people that disagree with you and wanting to have that scarlet letter, I said, that is just like so wrong. But, you know, so maybe to be clear, I have a lot of compassion on old earth creationists. I really do. I feel people like Stephen Meyer on our side. I'm disappointed with some of William Lane Craig's views, but I got to say, I've been there. You know, for a while I was not an inerrantist. I was just like, yeah, you know, maybe that part of the Bible got it wrong, but it's obvious there's a God and Jesus rose from the dead. But there, you know, I even several years ago, I was like, Lord, this is so hard to reconcile. Some parts like in Ezra and Nehemiah. And then we had the archaeological discoveries that vindicated Nehemiah. I'm like, Lord, thank you. I really needed that because things weren't looking as good as I wanted them. So when you said we don't have as much as we'd like, I'm totally there with you. So I can see that in his image just really wants to tee off on some things. Maybe another day, brother, because I'm about to close down the stream. And so I was just going to cover a little bit about Heather Heying. And I can't show. Huh?
Who's that?
She's an evolutionary biologist. And so since this is a variety show, I'm just gonna, you know, we're jumping off all sorts of topics like General Electric Corporation. And part of the reason that comes up, people wonder why am I all over the map. This is actually partly for me. It's nice to share what kind of just is interesting to me from a purely personal interest standpoint. So General Electric, ironically, is something I'm fascinated because I love technology, and just Thomas Edison was the founder of General Electric, and my field before I got into biology was electrical engineering. Okay, so maybe you're wondering, what is Sal up to? It's like, well, this is my life. This is my life for like a decade. Electric circuits and electromagnetism, and it's just every, you know, and that was in my time in the defense industry. It's hard not to talk about something that's been that big a part of your life. And then so I saw this thing by evolutionary biologist Heather Heying. She's the wife of Brett Weinstein, and if I can release some of the copyrights, I'd like to show some footage of the insanity at Evergreen State, where students were, oh goodness, it looked like an insane asylum. It didn't look like a university. Not just the students, but even some of the professors like Naima Lowe. It was scary. Some people may be acquainted with the short story Lord of the Flies, where civilization just breaks down and people just go crazy. That was Evergreen State. And they attacked Brett Weinstein, and they also, the university did some things to his wife, who's an evolutionary biologist. That's Heather Heying. Both of them sued the university for $3.5 million. They got a $500,000 settlement, and I was glad to hear that. And oh, okay. So we're talking about this leftist. It is a leftist failed idea. Okay, so even though Brett Weinstein and Heather Heying are on the left side, and some people on some conservatives said, well, we don't feel a lot of pity for them because they're feeding on their own ideology. But I still was very impressed with Heather Heying. And so if an evolutionary biologist is articulating what would be considered Christian talking points, I listen. She's pointing out that men and women are different. And I'm like, duh, because I showed this earlier headline where Tucker Carlson had someone on their show saying, you know, it's not natural. Breastfeeding isn't natural or beautiful. Men can feed children too. I'm just like, what's our culture coming to that you can't point that out? And Heather Heying was able to connect, like the fact that there's certain behaviors, like in prior societies, why women took care of the home and men went out to do things like hunt and gather. And it's like, yeah, this was actually pretty common sense. Like if you're a mother nursing a baby, it's probably not a good idea to be going out there and trying to hunt game. All right. It's better to be at home. So there was a division of labor that the woman would stay home, take care of the kids. The men would go out, hunt and gather. She said, okay, it's a little bit different now in the 21st century, but she was astute. She was willing enough to say at the population level, we totally see it that men will tend to excel at professions that deal with science and technology, engineering, numbers. Women very good in relational type things. And I'm like, why is that so wrong to point that out? And I'm like, this is refreshing to hear a leftist feminist point that out and say that that's okay. So it was refreshing.
Well, hasn't that been statistically proven anyway? I mean, why is there even a debate about that, right?
Exactly. And okay, so why was I excited about this? It's refreshing to hear an evolutionary biologist actually get something right, okay? I know that's a mean thing to say about evolutionary biologists, but this is a case where an evolutionary biologist actually got something right, and I was really like praising the Lord for it, okay? Because they get so many things wrong. An evolutionary biologist got something right. She criticized the deplatforming. She became part of the intellectual dark web, which is really not even a formal organization. But there have been a lot of atheists and left-wingers that say, we don't like the idea of deplatforming. We need civil discourse. This whole thing is safe spaces, and the repression in the universities is wrong. It's like, this is refreshing to hear someone on the left say that. And so I liked her for that. She didn't like postmodernism. She's talking about the bad faith actors in the Black Lives Matter movement. That actually shocked me. And I'm going to show something. Let's see. I did not know this. I mean, I may have heard it. This was actually a little bit. So she's talking about bad faith actors. She's talking about people that really don't care about Black Lives Matter, but they have to put on a show so that they can look woke and therefore be left alone. And this happened in June of last year. So I'll show it here. This is in Science Mag, the American Association for the Advancement of Science. And you can see here, it says Black Lives Matter, shut down academia. This was like this whole thing, shut down STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Researchers around the world prepare to shut down STEM and strike for Black lives. Thousands of researchers pledged around the world to pause their work on Wednesday to support the ongoing Black Lives Matter movement, an effort against racism in the scientific community. So how do they support this? They stop working. I'm like, and some people said that, yeah, that's all for show. They just don't want to be attacked. They don't want to be bullied. They just, they just have to show that they're the cool kids, but they don't really care about this. And she's talking about, okay, this is her view, but these people really don't care. She said, she called it out, and I said, I can't believe you classify yourself as a leftist. But she said, this is a pure power grab. People at the top that are advertising this don't really care either. But they're just, they're trying to grab power, and they're inciting people, but they don't care. They really don't care about racism. They're eager to get money. They're eager to get rants. They're eager to curry political favor, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, I can't believe you're saying this. So she describes herself as a professor in exile. And I linked to her video, and I totally don't agree with a lot of her views, like on evolution, and some things she said were just really ironic, but wrong and ironic. But I could tell she's a very she was the #1 rated teacher at Evergreen State. I could tell she cared about her students, wanted them thinking out of the box, being independently minded, being willing to be nonconformist. I said, no wonder she was highly rated. And so it was just refreshing to hear. But this whole thing about shut down STEM, and her interviewer said that also bothered me. It's like, what's happening here? What's this about? Why does Black Lives Matter have to be involved politically with the scientific establishment at all? And that was very bothersome to both of them. And finally, she talked about the failing process of the peer-reviewed literature. I'm just like, oh my goodness, isn't that so true now? To be able to get pushed through peer-reviewed papers in certain disciplines, you just have to be part of the clique. And you can perpetuate bad ideas. And I just wanted to say, unfortunately, Dr. Heying, you're in that because you're an evolutionary biologist. Your entire field is a clique. But she was at least astute enough to see that this is going on. And I'm just like, yeah, there's a lot of bad science. She said the exception has been if it's medically relevant and people could die. It's like, yeah, it might pass peer review, but it can't last long if your medical pharmaceuticals are killing people. That's not going to last long, thankfully. But she was saying there are other ideas that just perpetuate, and we had a show on that, particularly in the humanities, where you can people like Peter Boghossian would actually make a hoax in the paper. He knew it was total BS, and the paper would be accepted. It was hilarious. So it was just, like I said, the reason I like this is refreshing to hear an evolutionary biologist talk for 2 hours and get just about everything right. So I just wanted to share that with the viewers. If you had some final thoughts, and then I'm going to close down the stream.
Yeah, my final thought is about music, and specifically rap. And you know how, like in Japan, they call the rap is called J-rap, right?
I'm not familiar with it. But
yeah, in Japan it's called J-rap. And I just want to remind everybody that in China, the rap is called C-rap. That's all I have to say.
Wow. Well, I learned something. Well, it's been a lot of fun, and I really want to thank all the, I'd like to thank especially Patrick, my co-host tonight, for, bringing up this topic, and it made the conversation lively, and it did also give me a chance to say, what goes on is usually a little bit more nuanced than we think. It's not quite so black and white. And I wanted to say, this show came together really because of Patrick alerting me to this. And I want to say I really wish William Lane Craig the best. He seems like a real gentleman, and he's defended the faith. And, I'm grateful when the Lord overlooks our faults. And I've shared about the things I didn't like about the way Swamidass does business, and I'm happy to stand by that. Thankfully, he hasn't written me and flooded my emails with his displeasure about my views.
Well, thankfully, he's buddies with Tour, and hopefully Tour will straighten him out.
So I want to thank all the viewers. You've helped me through kind of a difficult time. So a lot of these streams like tonight is really also partly just so that I don't feel so lonely. And it was for the viewers that joined us on the power panel with the 4 PhDs, and then me, the dumb kid on the block, talking about abiogenesis. That was great. And thank you for all that supported me through my debate with James Downard. That's been great. And, maybe we'll have another show tomorrow. I don't know. It's just something we do kind of on the spur of the moment. But thank you all. And it's been delightful fellowshipping with you all. Take care, and God bless you, and have a good night.
God bless everybody. See ya.